the pop culture feel, and you will.
Did you ever, when you joined the military on a whim, right? It was just like a boom.
Yeah. Just figured I'd do it. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I knew I wanted to join. So when I'd like drive home from, I used to go to this after school program for ups. Because like I didn't pay attention in school, you know? And so like I was behind in my credits. So I had to go to like extracurricular activities after school. And there was this program called ROP, which was a regional occupation program. So basically, instead of teaching you like knowledge, it taught you a trade. Because they're like, these guys aren't going to college. They're going to go be the welders, the mechanics.
Hey, that's pretty cool though, man. This days, I encourage that for a lot of people.
Oh, no. It was honestly looking back on it, it was like super cool. They had like, I went to I did welding for 2 years, and then I did a graphic design class, and they also had like mechanics. So they taught you how to like, you know, do body shop work and teach you how to work on engines. And they had one for like nursing, and then they had one for like screen printing, like making apparel and clothing. So like it was really cool.
That's cool.
And you got a crap ton of credits for going. So like I was like, dude, I can totally like fail all my classes and just go here and then pass at the end of the year. So that's what I did. But it was located in like next to the ocean. So during the winter time, it got really cold. So every time, like in the winter times, I would drive the entire way. It took me about 45 minutes to get there, like an hour. And I would drive with my windows down and no shirt on for like an hour. And I'm like, I'm cold weather traded.
That's good, man. If only mentally, if only to know, like to set yourself in that mindset of, you know, the survival mindset, you know, even if it wasn't as cold as it could have been.
Yeah. It was like 50, but it was still super uncomfortable for like, you know, for California. So like I started training before I even left.
That's good, man. I feel like you set yourself up. I feel like anybody wanting to go into maybe an elite unit, Rangers, or anything where they feel like they're going to have to go through SERE school or endure a survival situation should start with the mindset. You got to start with the mindset, right? We'll talk about it today, man. If you don't have the right mindset, you're probably going to die, you know?
Exactly. Like I had a buddy I was talking to. I was his name is Zach Aldridge. He's a Danger Ranger on YouTube. He has a podcast as well. Nice. And I was on his podcast, and like we were talking about like what we do to prep, and I told him that story, and he's like, man, I took away my mattress and slept on the floor for like weeks. Because he's like, yeah, I did the same thing. When you like, yeah, it's all about mindset. But like you said, we'll get into it. So folks, welcome to this episode of the PCFM podcast. We haven't said it in a while, but we are sitting right in the intersection of weapons action, the military, and pop culture. So Izzy is going to explain what today's episode is, since he's more qualified to speak on it than I am.
I don't know, Cameron. I feel like at the end of the episode, people are going to see that you are just as qualified, because I may have the experience, but you have the passion. You have the passion.
I do.
For sure.
I love it.
It's SERE. It's our SERE episode, folks. Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. That's what SERE stands for. It's a school in the military and also in the civilian world, as you will hear. But it's for anybody that it might be caught in this situation. So it's for pilots. I did it in Special Forces training in the Q course. So anybody that might be in those kinds of situations, if you follow Garantham on YouTube, he's a big time gun tuber. He was a SERE instructor. He talks about it often. So it's a great school. It's a great set of skills for anybody. Really. We'll talk about mindset as well, kind of once we get going. But today we're going to be talking about SERE. We're going to kind of go back and forth between the actual kind of survival side of it, real world survival stuff, and then pop culture examples of that. We've kind of we had a previous episode where we talked about, it was just a kind of a man versus nature. We had an episode about that. We had a survival, episode previously. This one, we're going to try to connect it a little more to the military. And then talk about some of our personal experiences, and then maybe some practical stuff. I wouldn't say this, hopefully it'll be educational for you, but don't listen to this podcast and then go try to live in the woods for a week. You might die.
Yeah, you might die. We didn't tell you to do that.
We didn't tell you to do that. So, folks, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. Cameron, what have been your survival training? Basically?
Okay, so basically, most of my quote unquote survival training is all self-taught. As far as just like when I was in the military, I mean, I learned how to make like lean-tos and real basic stuff. Like I'm trying to think of like I ever took like a fire making class. No, even in Ranger School, like in the Ranger School handbook, they have a lot of like knowledge about survival, like plan identification, like how to skin a snake, how to like trap them and all that. But you don't do that in Ranger School. Like we don't do that. Plus, you think about the Ranger mission set, it's like we're not, we're kicking in doors. We're not trying to live with a local populace behind enemy lines and like, like Special Forces does, which I think is completely necessary to put them through the SERE pipeline. So in the Ranger pipeline, SERE isn't a required course. Now we go, especially like if you're in the recce section or a recce platoon of regiment, each battalion has their own recon section, which is separate from Regimental Reconnaissance Company, which is our tier 1 unit in the 75th Ranger Regiment. But those guys go to SERE when they get there. But it's not like a pipeline for them. It's just highly, highly, highly encouraged because at the end of the day, you're behind enemy lines doing recon. You need to know how to survive if you have to break contact and you get separated. But most of my survival, I don't have a lot of knowledge when it comes to resistance and escape. So if you would kidnap me, like I haven't gotten the education that you did, obviously the stories that I heard from all my buddies that went through SERE is like, you don't really hear about the survival part. It's like, that's whatever.
Yeah.
But you hear about like when you get captured and they begin interrogating you and the open hand slaps across the face. And like, basically giving them enough knowledge to where you can Google it and find the same answer to make them think that you are giving them like knowledge that they can use. But at the end of the day, it's like super unclassified knowledge. And you're just trying to appease them to get, to be able to get yourself by. So I know very basic knowledge when it comes to that, but most of my passion when it comes to this is more survival skills. So I consider myself an outdoorsman, being stationed in Washington, you're surrounded by the beautiful outdoors. And it's honestly a crime if you don't go out there and use them. So yeah, I really enjoy like, kind of bushcraft stuff. So like making things out of nothing, fire making, shelter making, all that stuff is I find it very fun. It's a hobby of mine. But you have the military qualifications, yes?
Well, yeah. The qualification for this qualification is that this was a long time ago. I took SERE school in 2006 is when I think I went through. Yeah, joined in 2005. Yeah, middle of 2006, end of 2006, I think is when I went through. But yeah, I actually went through the Special Forces qualification course, SERE school, the Green Beret SERE school. I guess they call it SERE level 3. I have to look at my DD-214. But yeah, they take you through all those different sections: the survival, the evasion part, the resistance, and the escape. And then, of course, the famous part of it is the practical exercise where you're evading and then you're eventually captured and they slap you around for a couple days. But but it was really, really valuable. And here's one thing I will say. Like we've talked about, we took like on shift fire, I went out to our buddy in the desert, and we had a couple of I think all those episodes eventually came out. The water class, purification, the shelter building, Chad, a survival expert, or what did he call himself? A natural skills expert or earth skills expert.
Earth skills expert. There you go. Chad, Mr. Chad. What was his last name? Do you remember?
Oh, I forget, man. But
Chad Kinley or something like that. I don't remember. It's been a while.
But we did all that stuff. They're all my point was it's perishable skills, right? If this is something that you want to do, or maybe some tools for your tool bag when you are going to when you're going camping and you just want to have kind of a more base of knowledge so you can have confidence while you're out there alone. It's stuff you got to keep practicing, Fortunately, last year, in the beginning of the year, me and the wife took a civilian SERE school with coin survival classes, COYNE coin survival classes. I've spoken about them before. They're really good. I highly recommend any of the classes if you're available in either the Southern California area, or I think they do stuff in Northern California and also Alaska. Once a year, they do like an Alaska wilderness survival thing. But we actually got to take theirs. They have a civilian SERE school. And if you are the kind of person that wants to really grow beyond yourself, to really be pushed beyond your limits, your current limits, because we live in a very comfortable society, I totally recommend it. Because going through their school, I could tell that they must have consulted or asked people who were in the actual SERE school, the military SERE school, about different strategies and things that they could do to make it a good, a valuable experience rather.
Yeah.
And because I could tell there was a lot of parallels with the things that they put us through. The civilian SERE school, for those interested, the coin survival classes school it's civilian SERE school in that it's being kidnapped in a foreign country is a very real possibility. Like you go traveling, like taken, all that stuff that actually happens, people getting kidnapped, people getting held for ransom, all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of the main thrust of the civilian SERE school. They talk about things to watch out for, how to be a safe traveler. And they actually have a separate class called Travel Safe where they talk about those in more detail, but we kind of got an overview. We talk about different kinds of restraints that you might encounter if you were ever kidnapped and maybe how to defeat them if you ever had the chance. We talk about a little bit of survival stuff out in the woods, shelter building, counter tracking ideas, and best practices that they pass along. And then at the end of the school, the last night and a half, kind of like Saturday night going on into Sunday morning, is the practical exercise where they pretend to kidnap you. They all put masks on and they grab you, they throw you on the floor, they zip tie your hands, they put a hood on you. And then they kind of lead you around. And we got to do it in this kind of defunct camp area, like summer camp area where they had cabins and stuff. They're all full of spiders and caterpillars. And so they would put us in there, and then everybody got to do an interrogation session, which was not fun. No, we were up in the woods, and they would do a lot. Like they would spray you with hose water, like with a garden hose. And you're just standing there shivering in like 30-degree weather in the mountains. It was not fun. Big fun. But it was cool, man. It was a very, very valuable experience. What I like about this stuff is that like, I was happy to go through it because it's always good to challenge yourself, right? Absolutely. No matter what, even if like I did SERE school, but I did it 13 years ago. I want to keep going. I want to keep pushing myself. Current. Yeah, exactly. But if you've never had any experience like this and you want to find a way to really expand your mind and push yourself to your physical limits, I think this is a good way to do it. It's a safe environment. They have safe words. They have, there's guardrails to what they're doing. It's not like a torture session. But it's good, man. It made me feel really happy to know that something like this is out in the civilian world and available to people because, I get it. Everybody has their own problems. Life is tough depending on how you look at it. But here in America, generally speaking, we got it pretty easy,
Oh yeah, man. I mean, like you said, being the likelihood of you getting kidnapped in a foreign country, like it's there. I'm not going to say like it's completely gone here in the States because you can't predict anything.
Right.
I mean, it's like it's better to stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, SERE skills in general, like bushcraft skills, everything, tracking skills, counter tracking skills, which to me are very cool.
Yeah.
As an infantry guy, I highly encourage you out there if you're listening. Like your job, we're gonna get deep here real quick. Your job is to literally hunt down other human beings and kill them. Like real talk, man. And if you don't know how to do that, a really good way to is learn to track.
Yeah.
Like there are some really good pieces of doctrine from like Vietnam, like the LURS teams in Vietnam on tracking and counter tracking. Pick those up because they talk about some wicked stuff. And it's, I'm not going to give you you got to go digging for this shit, people. But yeah, look up the old SOG manuals or the Special Forces LURS teams or the Ranger LURS teams manuals on tracking, counter tracking, and you will not be disappointed. They're awesome. But yeah, so you should know how to do all this stuff. You should realize, because like the footprint tells a story, right?
Yeah.
It tells a story, and like, obviously it shows direction of travel by the prints of the footprint. You can tell, is this a military force? Because everybody in the military wears Vibram soles. Like, that is it. So like, you can tell what a Vibram sole looks like. Sometimes if it's a good imprint, you can even see the Vibram logo. So you're like, oh, there's people wearing, hiking boots or military boot out here. So you're like, oh, military force. You can see how fast they're moving based on how far the footprints are apart. If they're moving super fast, they're striding it out, they're pretty far. If they're moving slow, they're pretty close together. Direction of travel, like, you can tell kind of, you can get a rough estimate how many there are. If they're loaded down with the sustainment equipment based on how heavy they are deep in the ground, like, there are so many tells from just a footprint. So if you can, learn to read them, you know how to defeat them as well with counter tracking. So that's another story. But yeah, all this stuff is super cool, man.
Yeah.
It totally piques my interest, just because I'm like super autistic when it comes to this stuff. Like, for some reason, I have like such a fascination with it. But yeah, I think these skills are, what everybody should kind of look into. And I when I say everybody, I mean there's people out there regardless that just don't care.
Yeah.
They live a life of, comfort, and and they're perfectly okay doing so. They wear rose-colored glasses. Like, they don't think anything's going to happen to them. And I don't care about those people, but I do care about the people that have a genuine concern. Because if you have a genuine concern, we have something in common. Yeah, definitely learn, this stuff, because it could save your life. It could save your life, or it could save the life of someone else. And that's why we're here. But yeah, we got some movies that we want to talk about. That involve some of the SERE thing. And the cool thing about SERE is, it's not just survival. There's the escape and the resistance part, which is huge. So we have some that feature that, some that are just survival, and we've had that survival episodes. We're going to try to mesh them together, but we got a long list, and I'm excited to talk about them because this stuff is cool.
Yeah, the first one I want to bring up is Rescue Dawn. It's 2006, directed by Werner Herzog, star of The Mandalorian season 1, and Christian Bale. I don't think it's a true story, but it's basically about a U.S. fighter pilot, and Christian Bale, he gets shot down. It's Vietnam. He gets shot down during a bombing run, and then he is in the woods, and then eventually he gets captured by the Vietnamese and is a POW for a while. It is based on a true story. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Dieter Dengler.
Okay.
Dieter Dengler.
That's right. But really, really good, because I feel like there are parallels, his kind of situation and how he conducted himself, to stuff that you actually do learn in the military SERE school. Like, I won't give away the game. I know there's a lot. I always struggle with this, man, because I know there's a lot of Green Berets out there. There's a lot of military people that don't want you to talk about what SERE school entails. And I respect that. I really do. And so I want to kind of because they say it's like, listen, this is something that only people who go through the training can experience and should know, or not just should know, but there's the ins and outs and what exactly they do. It's like, and if you want that experience, go try to be a Green Beret, go try to go through the Q course, challenge yourself in that way. And then you get to have that experience. But one thing I will say is there's a moment in the movie after he gets captured by the North Vietnamese, and they say, hey, babe, you see this in other movies as well that we'll talk about, but they get an opportunity, like, listen, if you sign this paper, all you got to do is sign this paper and we'll let you go. We'll put you on a truck, we'll put you back, and we'll take you across lines. You'll be back. All you have to do is sign this paper. Well, what it is it's something that's like propaganda. It's like, I confess that I've done war crimes, that America's a bad country. And it's like, it's basically propaganda for the enemy so they can use it later on. Yeah. And he won't sign. He's like, I'm sorry. He's like, I will not sign. I'm not going to sign. They're like, listen, we're going to put you back in prison if you don't sign it. He's like, I'm not going to sign it, and that's really like a thing that, that these, whether it's old world communist countries or different countries where people get captured, that they try to use that psychological warfare where they're like, hey, listen, if you just sign this thing, man, all you got to do is And then he's like, no. And they're like, all right, back to prison with you.
Get back to jail with you, bud. I mean, yeah, that's a super important thing. I think it needs to be harped on again is like the OPSEC. Well, first of all, like there's things that happen in the military that we just don't want to talk about. And it's not like the whole mystique of being in special operations. It's like, no, if we told you, then this podcast is open platform, I'm sure if they had a cell phone and, North Korea and they just Googled PCFM podcast, this would pop up and they could learn something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we don't want to share everything, but I think it's, very important, like what you said, as far as just like, if you want the experience, become a Green Beret, go to SERE school. If you want to know. Plus, I don't see the advantage of like, you're going through this training to give you a taste of something you can't predict, right? So this is a controlled environment that's that you're put through, and there's right answers, there's wrong answers, but in real life, you don't, training is just as you what's the word I'm looking for? You always fall down to your lowest level of training.
Yeah.
In a high stress environment, right? So if you if you try to war game these schools, if you try to plan what you're going to do or what you're going to say, there's a big chance when it actually happens and you don't expect it, you won't perform the way you did. So if you throw yourself into this training without any preparation other than the will to survive, you're it's not going to be beneficial. That's the same thing with like all these guys that I'm sure you get asked like, oh, I want to go to the Q course, like what can I do to prepare? Or like, guys hit me up and they're like, I want to go to RASP, what should I do to prepare? And like when we went through, damn sure when you went through, there was no answers.
Yeah.
There was no answers. You couldn't Google, how do I pass RASP? Now there's all these programs and everything that prepare you.
Yeah. There's like YouTubers that talk about like how to get prepared for selection, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Which is awesome. And
it's physical fitness, folks. That's it.
Yeah. Literally just be in shape, be a good guy. That's it. Be in shape, be a good guy. Just whatever they throw at you, do it. That's literally it. And when we went through, we didn't have that. It was just like all unpredictable. So we got this full experience, So I think when it comes down to like SERE or these crazy scenarios like featured in Rescue Dawn, just you want to throw yourself into the lion's den and see how you come out instead of war gaming it and planning everything to where when it does happen and you're not prepared for it, you have nothing to fall back on. You have no experiences to fall back on.
And you want to have stuff like this. Why I would recommend survival classes or that civilian SERE school I previously mentioned. You want to fail in that environment. You know what I mean? Yeah. You want to fail and have the wrong reaction or get pushed beyond your limits in that safe, structured environment before it actually happens. You know what I mean? Yep. And I'm not. I think everybody should do it. I was going to say, I don't think everybody should do it, but like everybody should do it because if you don't, one thing, if it happens to you, then there's a chance it could save your life. The other thing, even if it never happens to you, it's struggle and suffering are two things that we can really learn a lot from. It's really these can be beneficial things in our lives. And for somebody that lives a fairly comfortable life, you have to put yourself purposefully in those situations, because otherwise they're just not going to happen in real life unless something actually does happen, in which case you're pretty much screwed because you never fathomed that you could ever be in the situation. You're just going to revert to like your animalistic, you don't know how you're going to react,
Yeah. So put yourself out there, put yourself in situations because the best teacher in life is failure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You learn the most when you fail. Yeah. So, okay. So Rescue Dawn. Back to Rescue Dawn.
Yeah, back to Rescue Dawn.
Back to Rescue Dawn. Now our tangents are over.
Yeah.
Rescue Dawn is a really good example of like just the horrors of a POW camp, not only in life, but just in general.
The conditions,
the conditions, how they treat you.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And Rescue Dawn's fun because it goes through, I think, all of them. You've got the survival aspect on both sides before he gets captured and and then you got evasion when he escapes. You've got resistance when he's in the POW camp. And he obviously escapes. So it's all in there. it's based on a true story, which is super cool.
Yeah.
You know,
It's super. Another piece of pop culture that's based on a true story that is one of my favorite like POW movies ever created is Unbroken.
oh my
That
god, so
movie-
good, man.
That movie, because it's not just one survival scenario. It's not just one.
Yes,
They literally survive 47 days in a floating craft surrounded.
yes,
I don't know if this is how true this is, but like the scene where there's ginormous sharks surrounding them.
yeah,
And they're in this inflatable raft. And like when the Japanese plane comes in and you could see the sharks just,
yeah.
going around their boat in close proximity, and the Japanese plane comes in and starts shooting at them.
Yeah, start
They all
strafing
jump
them.
in the water.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. And they're like, he's swimming and the shark comes up and he hits the shark with
yeah,
his foot and he doesn't even realize. Oh my God. I shit my pants when I saw that. Yeah. Dude, that movie. And then, so that's just part one. That's survival number one. And then they get rescued and oh my God, it's the Japanese.
yeah, yep. Oh, and
So
the
then-
Japanese, man, Louis Zamperini is World War II, based on a true story. He's actually from Torrance, California.
Yeah,
But,
my buddy was lived in the same neighborhood that Louis Zamperini grew up in, and there was
Oh
a
my God.
plaque on his house that said, "This is the home of Louis Zamperini."
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's so cool. But what I was going to say is the Japanese are not known, or rather they are known for how harshly they treated like their
POW.
prisoners of war, man. And like people that they captured, we're talking like chopping heads off and like just doing the most abhorrent stuff to anybody they conquered, man. Back in the day, Japanese, man, they weren't all about like anime and naughty tentacles, They were
Yeah,
about, like,
no.
conquer. They were imperialist with a capital I, man. The emperor was God, and they were gonna stretch their hand across the world and be in charge, and that's the attitude
Yeah.
they had when they went into World War II. And so I think Louis Zamperini, he spent 2 years in captivity before the war actually ended, I think was when he finally got out. But the thing I like about this one is another thing that is spoken of often in a capture situation is you got to insulate, not isolate. You got to, when you're with other people, you got to help each other out,
Yeah.
I feel like they did a good job of that in the movie. There's a great cast of other officers, other people that were captured along with him. And they're all grimy and grungy and just like dirty all the time.
Yeah.
But they still have a network. Like everybody knows who each other is. They help each other out. They insulate each other. They lift each other up and try to encourage one another. And that was something that was very touching in the film, too, when they're going through this stuff and they're still being human to each other. And they're not like, it's not like every man for himself.
Yeah, dude. There's so many moments in that movie where you think he's gonna get a break, and then
Yeah.
boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the bird, the guy that's in charge of the camp that everybody hates.
Yes.
He's like, "Why do you make me do this to you? Why are you making me do this?"
They call him the bird. That's what he's known as.
Yeah,
bird.
the bird, and like he gets reassigned, and everyone's like, "Great!" And then Louis gets shifted to another camp, and guess who's in charge of that one?
Yeah, that part where when he gets to the second camp and they're all lined up, they're like, "Get ready for your commander to come out," and they all like are at attention. And Louis like looks up and sees it's the bird coming down, and he like faints a little bit. And the guy has to like catch him.
He's
Like,
like,
hold
"No!"
on. Yeah,
Oh man,
because there's
dude.
that one part in the first camp where I don't even know what he did. Like the bird just had it in for him. Like he would just
Yeah.
focus all of his aggression on Louis Zamperini to try
Because he's
to
an
break him.
Olympic. Because he was an Olympic athlete.
That's right. He was an Olympic
That's
athlete.
why.
Yep.
So like he had a target on his back because when they heard they had an Olympic athlete, they made him race the
Yeah.
Japanese guy. But he's all malnourished and he's
Yeah.
been in like captivity for months, and he just gets destroyed. And he's like, "You think you're better than me?"
Yeah. He has all the dudes. Was that the part where he has all the
Yeah.
dudes, all the other POWs? I want everybody here to punch him in the face. And he just has to
Yeah.
stand there and get punched in the face.
There's like 100 guys.
100 dudes
dude.
lined up to punch him in the face. And like, oh man.
Yeah, and it's not like it wasn't like a soft tap. Like they had to actually
No.
like hit him in the face.
Yeah. Otherwise they'd get punished. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody would get
for it.
punished, man. that movie, you know, I could talk about that movie for a long time, but
Well,
there
what?
are other.
No. You say you give me 2 or 3 more things you love about this movie, because I love this movie too, man. It'll bring a tear to your eye if you ever
Oh,
watch it.
it'll make a full grown man cry.
Yeah.
First of all, this movie is called Unbroken. It could also be called Resilience. Like, it literally.
Yep.
Like, if you think your life sucks, you know, watch this movie and realize how much of a bitch you are. I don't know, man. It's just,
true,
it's
man.
such an inspiring, like, Louis Zamperini's story, like how, you know, he comes from an Italian, you know, family in a time
Yep.
when, like, you know, racism wasn't just towards African Americans,
Right,
you know.
right.
Oh man, the Italians, when they first immigrated to the States,
Yeah.
you know, you had World War II where they were an enemy, and now they're all coming over to the States. Like, dude, like, that was bad. And then the Irish coming over,
Yeah.
they were just destroyed when they got off the boats.
Yeah, everybody got a little bit of it. Everybody got a little
everybody
bit
got
of racism when they came over, you know.
Yeah, so, you know, he had to deal with racism growing up. He, you know, got into running, became, you know, broke records, high school records, went on to race in the Olympics, didn't win, but still, to be able to make it to the Olympics is an achievement on its own. Joining the Air Force, becoming a pilot, flying in World War II, literally surviving 47 days on an on a raft, keeping everybody alive with minimal rations.
Yep.
Then surviving in an encampment, 2 encampments, and then finally getting out. Like, like, if you think your life sucks, you have no idea what's going on. It's just his story. It's just absolutely amazing. Like, it's resilience 101, resiliency 101. It will make you cry. It's one of my favorite stories of all time.
Yeah. All right. Now I'm satisfied. Now we can move on.
Does that answer your question? Is that at least you? But there's another military film that has to do with, like, escape and evasion that is fairly new. Wasn't my favorite of all time, but I think the story itself is a really good story. The Covenant, 2023.
Yeah, man. Yeah, a good lesson, I would say, or the message of the story is worth telling. You know,
yeah.
It's the short version is Jake Gyllenhaal. He's a Green Beret in Afghanistan, working with a new interpreter, who's kind of a bit of an upstart. He's a bit of a strong-willed kind of guy, and they end up creating this friendship. And then Jake Gyllenhaal's ODA, his team gets totally wiped out, and he gets injured in the process. But his interpreter ends up putting him on a cart and taking him out of there. And he's like, for like 100 days or something like that, 90 days, it takes him to get back to an American base, and he saves him. And then they get separated, and Jake Gyllenhaal goes back to the States. And then the rest of the movie is him trying to get this guy out of the country. And the basic thrust is Guy Ritchie, he heard about, or he saw a documentary about the relationships that a lot of soldiers had with their interpreters, the people they worked with in Afghanistan, because we were there for 20 plus years.
Yeah, man. And it was really hard to leave those people.
Yeah. And so it's about that. It's like we made a covenant with these guys. We made an agreement with these guys that we are good, that they, a lot of them had promises for visas and all that kind of stuff. And we just left. We just left them there,
Yeah.
And
are you ready to make a covenant?
Yeah. So like you said, the movie has its problems, and it was actually a bomb. It actually did not make any money, unfortunately, which is too bad, because for the message and what it is, it's I really appreciated the effort that they went through, the Guy Ritchie and everybody went through. But all that to say, the big part of it, as it connects up to SERE, is going to be the part where they're evading. Basically, after Jake Gyllenhaal's team gets wiped out, they're evading, and then he gets injured. And then Dar Salim actually is the actor's name. He plays Ahmed. And then them kind of going through the countryside and evading people. The cool thing about that, how that spin on the whole escape and evasion part is, One, he's got somebody with him who's injured. Jake Gyllenhaal. At one point, he hides him. He's in a truck and he hides him. He covers him up with a bunch of rugs, and then he gets stopped by the bad guy. Yeah, the Taliban, and they're like sitting in the truck on the back on top of Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah, and then the cool thing about it is that he knows the country. Obviously, he's been there.
Yeah,
or he lives there. He's a local, and so he meets with other locals and he's able to barter with them and trade, and he knows which way to go, which way the Taliban are less likely to be. And so he really uses his skill of the culture, which is something that's often talked about in special forces, knowing the culture and building rapport and all that kind of stuff. But he uses that to great effect, obviously, because he's from there, because he knows the culture. And that's how he's able to bring Jake Gyllenhaal through with this guy, like a head injury. He's unconscious most of the time.
Yeah, give him some opium. Have him smoke
some opium at one point. Yeah, to kind of knock him out a little bit.
Use it as a painkiller. But the message, there's some advising things in the movie that I wasn't so keen on, or the costume department, which, as an elitist veteran, that, it seems to be my identity, and I can't just enjoy movies,
your lot in life,
like regular people. But yeah, the message, like you said, was awesome. I enjoy seeing the relationship, because everybody thinks typical American military, we go somewhere and we just destroy everything, right? We don't care about anybody who's there. But it's the farthest thing from the truth, right? You form these relationships with the people you're working with, and you're trying to help them, liberate their city, because they're going, it's their home. They're more impacted than we are, because we're foreigners. We're from a distant land, and we don't have to worry about, what's going on there happening where we are. So, it's the bonds that get created are second to none, other than, compared to the bonds you make with the guys you're fighting with. I would argue to say, the bonds with the bonds made with some interpreters and U.S. forces are the same, that I made to guys in my own team.
Yeah.
So yeah, you would do anything for those dudes. So why wouldn't you do it for, the guys that are unfairly left there during a very terrible time?
Yeah.
But yeah, Covenant was a great example of that escape and evasion, directly correlates to SERE.
Yeah.
The tactics, even though I don't think he went through SERE school, the interpreter did, but he did a damn good job of just knowing the land and, knowing when to hit the gas and when to kind of use his brain instead of just, brute force.
Yeah.
So this movie is about survival. And this was also based off of a true story this one actually made me cry at the end. It made me bawl at the end. Have you ever seen The Way Back?
Never heard of it.
Oh, here we go, baby. Gotcha, finally. Okay. So this one actually has a killer cast. I'm surprised you haven't heard of it, but it came out in 2010. Okay. It's called The Way Back. And it features
Ed Harris. I'm looking at Colin Farrell, Saoirse Ronan. Okay, cool. Jim Sturgis.
Yeah. So it has some big names in there, and it's essentially based off of a true events. And there were, during World War II, or during the German occupation, Stalin times of Russia, everybody was imprisoned that went against communism, essentially. So they had this Polish guy who was arrested and put in this internment camp, and it was in Serbia. And in the beginning of the movie, they're like, these fences, this barbed wire is not your jailer. The Serbian wilderness is. This is what will keep you here, because you will die if you try to run. He's like, the nature will kill you. And he's like, and if the nature doesn't kill you, the locals will, because there is, bounties on all escaped fugitives. So everybody's going to get you. So anyways, this Polish guy just, he's a little bit of an outdoorsman, and he gets a group of guys together and makes an escape, and they escape from the camp, and they end up walking over 4,000 miles.
What?
From Serbia to India. They walk.
What?
It's incredible. And they start out with
true story.
Based off true events.
Oh, okay. All right.
Based off true events, but 3 men ended up making it 4,000-mile journey to India. and pretty much it just shows the trials and tribulations of like, you want to talk about like unbroken, like that's the will to survive. Like there were so many moments in this movie that you're like, there's no way these guys are gonna make it. Like
Wow.
they are starved, and this is back in like the 40s where you don't have any technology. Like he's using, you know, what he knows. He uses like the sundial method with like the pine cones and the stick to do shadow to show where his azimuth is, and like, oh, it's just amazing movie. And at the very end, they finally make it, and like the makeup is amazing because like his eyes are just sunken in. He looks like absolute shit. Like he looks like a guy that just walked 4,000 miles. Like it took him years. Like it probably took them a year to do this of just walking. They never had a vehicle. They never had anything. They walked the entire way. And at the end, it made me absolute tear because in the beginning, his wife is tortured, and that's what puts him in prison because they torture his wife into basically saying that like he is a spy, and then he gets arrested. So then he like throughout the movie he goes crazy because there's multiple times he almost dies from starvation or just, you know, from exhaustion, and he always envisions like his house in front of him like he's going home. And at the end, he finally goes home, and he's like 30 years older, and he like hugs his wife, and they're all old, and dude, it's got a fan. It's
in there.
Yeah, phenomenal movie. But my favorite character is definitely Colin Farrell's character. He plays a Russian, a professional Russian criminal, and he's just an absolute animal.
Wow.
Yeah, you should check out the movie. It's great. I think it's free on Pluto, or it's if you have like a Vizio TV, like a smart TV, it's free.
Okay.
It's a great movie, dude.
You know what's funny, man? I'm looking at the director, man. Peter Weir. He directed Dead Poets Society, Truman Show, Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World, and like he didn't direct anything until this movie in 2010. Like 2003 was Master and Commander, and then nothing on his IMDb except for like some short film collections until the way back in 2010. And then he hasn't directed anything since, I don't think.
Oh, that movie probably broke him like it broke me.
Pretty wild, man. Maybe he's got other stuff going on, but that's pretty cool, man. I appreciate that. That's just that you don't understand. Sometimes it just doesn't impact you, the strength of the human spirit, you know, the will to survive. And until you hear true stories about, you know, true incidents of people surviving, just stuff that you're like, most people would be like, oh yeah, I'd be dead. I'd never survive. But then something inside you calls to you. Something deep calls to you. You're like, could I do that? Could I survive? You know,
I don't care who you are. You're capable of so much more.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally.
And it's like, that's why you got to keep doing hard stuff.
Yeah.
Like you got to do hard stuff to prove to yourself like, hey, I am unbreakable.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah. You're capable of so much more than you think you are. Let me tell you. But yeah, this movie, The Way Back, is a great example of like what humans can endure. There's specifically one scene where like when they first escape, they're making their way to a lake, and this is like a large geographical kind of waypoint in their mind, because they know like if we get to this lake and we go to the south end, we're gonna hit this train track, and then we're gonna keep that's south. So basically, they start in Serbia until they hit Mongolia, and they walk all the way through Mongolia into China. And then they walk into China to the Tibetan Peninsula until they hit the Himalayan mountains, and then they walk over the Himalayan mountains.
Oh my God!
Into India to where their final journey is. That's 4,000 miles, and like they cross over the Great Wall of China, and it's all on foot with just sticks. You know, it's absolutely crazy. But there's like a point where they're looking for the lake in the beginning, and they're like, "How long is it to the lake?" And the main guy in charge he's like, 2 to 3 weeks. And I just heard that, and I was like, could you imagine just walking for 3 weeks straight to know that you're like not even close?
Wow.
So like there's a point where they're like stopped, and they're literally fighting wolves for half-eaten deer, and they're like eating the deer raw after they're like scaring the wolves away, because like they're in full survival mode. Just guys are getting picked off left and right from the nature and the weather, and like the guy in charge is like, you guys stay here. I'm going to go see if I can find the lake. and he basically goes off on his own for 3 days in the Serbian winter,
Wow.
like surviving rain, just on all hands and knees, just like crawling up this hill. And he finally makes it back, like barely. And he's like, the link is 3 days, march. And then he collapses. And they kind of bring him back to health by like, because he's freezing cold, and they like heat up rocks to warm him and give him some food. And like, oh, it's incredible. The movie's incredible.
Dang, man. Okay. Inspired by the memoir of Slavomir Ravitz, depicting his escape from a
Polish
Siberian gulag. Yeah. And subsequent 4,000-mile walk to freedom in India. Gee whiz. Golly. It just blows my mind, man. Like, yeah, it just blows my mind, dude.
No, yeah, it's an incredible movie. You should, if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Good cast, great directing, and that ending just. And I usually don't cry at endings, you know. I'm a pretty tough guy, but like right when he opens the door, like it felt like I got punched in the stomach. Like, dude, it hit so hard.
It's good, man. It means
it was great.
You got a heart, man. You got a heart.
I have empathy.
Cold chest.
Yeah. I know. Empathy claws its way out sometimes.
Well, man, that's good examples of survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. We have a fan question, and then we can jump into our game, and which will be a hard one for you, I think.
Yeah.
Before we do, folks, I just want to make mention, if you like all of this content, if you like what Cameron and I are about, we got tons more stuff on our Pop Culture Field Manual podcast YouTube. Please go check it out. We got the first formation, which is my roundup of some of the things in pop culture I'm excited for the upcoming week. And then Cameron has a wrap up of military news at the end of the week called The Debrief. Really fun stuff. In addition to the visual versions of our podcast. If you like the podcast enough, you want to join our Patreon, please do so. We got 3 tiers, extra full versions of the video and audio episodes. You got extra episodes for the mid tier, and then we do a once a month movie live stream that you can access afterwards if you're a top tier member. Lots of fun stuff. And also, if you like horror games, go check out the Iz Files on YouTube. That's my channel where I play through some of the scariest games. And it's a good time. We got some skits in there. We make fun of them, and we have a good time. So anyway, on to our fan question. This is from Fonzie Verata. Good dude, former military guy. He's on my Twitch channel quite often.
He's on our Patreon too.
And
I love
Patreon.
hanging with Fonzie.
That's right, Fonzarelli's. He asks, just saw the Milsim West 2022 video. You guys can check that out on the Pop Culture Field Manual podcast YouTube as well. We did a Milsim West event back in 2022. Cameron's actually done one since then, but this one was just released from this one from last year, or 2 years ago, actually. And it was awesome. Would you guys be willing to do a video on what kit you were using for the event, from your ruck to your rifle? I want to go to an event here in the East Coast and read that the TAC Ops, and I felt like I was overthinking it from my own military experiences and don't have any airsoft experience. Looking forward to the next Milsim video you guys do. Should you choose to do one, much love you guys. Side note, it's a poncho liner, not a whoopee. What?
First of all,
what the heck?
I read that, and I love you, Fonzie, and this is why I feel like I can say this to you. Fuck you, man. It is called a whoopee, okay? It's poncho liner on paper, but it is called a whoopee. I don't know how they do it in the Navy, but
yeah. Maybe you guys a little more squared, like left, right, left in the Navy,
Yeah.
They'll let you use slang.
Yeah, you guys don't have slang. Yeah. But whatever. No, yeah, as Milsim West goes, I think, that was Izzy's first game, if I'm correct.
Yep, that was my first time doing that, yeah.
I've done a couple of them, and every one I've done, I've been one of the cadre for it. So, yeah, I actually made a video for my last one of like what I pack, but I can do that, and I'll throw it up for you on the Patreon. But I think you're definitely overthinking it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, totally. Like, it's 3 days, just bring food and stuff to shoot and like something to be comfortable in.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. If you want to, I would say, like, for me, just because I'm a softie, I wore like long underwear underneath or some extra padding, because you're going to get shot with the BBs and they can sting a little bit. Don't worry. You wear some extra padding. You'll still feel it. It just won't sting as much, because those things hurt, man.
Oh my God. You're such a baby.
Yeah,
I got
totally
shot in the face one time so hard. Like, It was not cool. I took like a full burst, and I just wear glasses. I don't wear any face protectors, but I took a full like 6-round burst to the face from like 10 feet away. And I literally had to pop a BB out of my skin because dude, it hurt so bad. I was actually escaping and evading because we did this hit, like getting an HVT, and like it just went to shit and everybody started escaping. And like I'm running through buildings and all of a sudden I turn this corner and it's at nighttime. So I'm running under nods. And I guess they called like their QRF, who are the quote unquote Russians. And they came in the area that I didn't know that they were coming from. And I turned a corner and I just see this flashlight turn on and just immediate pain in my face. I like hit the ground and saw it. But I have a picture of that. It literally, my entire side of the face like blew up.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I think you're overthinking it, Fonzie. But I'll post a video of what I typically bring. But yeah, if you just follow the tax op and like kind of just use your own military experience of what you like to bring out to the field to make things more comfortable, because it also depends on like, where the venue is. Like some venues you walk a lot, so you want to be more comfortable. Some venues you're static more often, so you want to bring more warm clothes. Some venues rain a lot, some venues don't. So it really depends where you're going and what you're doing. But yeah, I'll make a video for you and post it sometime in the future.
Good stuff, man.
Good stuff. All right.
Time for the game, team. And this game is going to be run by me, and this game is for Cameron, and I'm very glad about that because this game is going to be hard.
Yeah, I know. I got a text from Chris saying, hey, games are in. SERE game is really hard, but I think you'll have a good time. So we'll see.
Let's find out, Chris, if you are, because this game's a little different. It's called How Good Is Your Memory? Part of the core of survival training for soldiers is to know the code of the United States Fighting Force, which consists of 6 articles. What are those 6 articles? Feel free to paraphrase.
Hey, wait, is this a question?
This is the question. I've got 6 different articles here, and you can tell me, if you can, what those 6 are. I remember looking at these things. I remember this, but it's been literally decades since I've had to call these to mind.
Let me just get by article. Is this like AR 670-1? Is that like an article?
No,
that's an Army regulation.
6 different, like, it's like the Ranger Creed. It's like 6 different paragraphs about what it means to be the Army, like a United States soldier.
Oh my God. Is this the Soldier's Creed?
No. Is it the Soldier's Creed? Okay.
I'm an American soldier.
Yes, I'm an American fighting in the forces which guard my... I'm going to give you the first one. I'm an American fighting in the forces which guard my country and our way of life. I'm prepared to give my life for their defense.
I've never heard of this before.
Really? Oh,
never heard of this.
I've heard of this, but maybe we can turn it, instead of turning it into a game, maybe we can turn it into like a learning experience, Well,
I'd love to learn this first one because like I've never heard of articles of blah blah blah. That must be old school something.
I feel like it must be kind of older doctrine, because I'm, like I said, it's been a long time since even I have thought of this. Here, I'll send it to you real quick, man. I just shared it with you in the doc. You can look in on it for yourself. And I remember this stuff. It's just like, I don't think it's the Ranger. I don't think it's like the Soldier's Creed or something like that. I think it's like a general, I feel like everybody has a creed these days. Soldiers have a creed, Green Berets have a creed, Rangers have a creed. Yeah. I think the Ranger, I feel like the Ranger Creed is like the OG creed.
Yeah, I know the Ranger Creed.
The actual creed, but
Code of the United States Fighting Force. I've never seen this before. I've never heard of this before.
Yeah. So the second one is, I will never surrender of my own free will. If in command, I will never surrender the members of my command while they still have the means to resist. I remember this. This is sounding familiar. I just can't remember. I think it was like basic training was the last time I actually was exposed to this. Soldiers, it's like code of conduct or something like that.
This seems like it is a straight
code of conduct thing. Yeah, code of conduct. I'm an American. Yeah, that's what it is. AR 350-30 covers code of conduct. Applies to all members of the U.S. Armed Forces. Oh, really? Interesting. Oh,
wow.
But yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, let's go through each 6 of them and let's learn something. Because, I've never heard of this. It seems like, I mean, just quickly glancing over them, it looks like this has to do if you're, like, you need to know this if you're, like, captured.
Right, right.
Like these are the this looks like it's the rules of like being a POW.
Yeah, maybe I was exposed to this in SERE school and I just forgot because I do this. Like I said, I've seen this before. I just can't place where I've seen it. I mean, obviously in the Army, but
Yeah.
the last time I saw it.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. Number 1. I'm an American, fighting in the forces which guard my country and our way of life. I'm prepared to give my life in their defense. Okay, pretty straightforward. You know, you can die, and you should be willing to if you are in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
exactly.
no cowards alive. No
cowards allowed.
No
it's like
cowards allowed.
General. This is even more general than like soldier, like what is it?
What,
or
the
no,
general
leadership.
order?
Sorry, no leadership. I was thinking loyalty, duty, respect, self-service, honor, integrity,
Service,
personal
honor,
courage.
integrity, personal courage.
Yeah. I will never surrender of my own free will. If in command, I will never surrender the members of my command while they still have the means to resist.
Ooh.
It's like, when do you stop? When do you give up? Or when do you stop fighting?
You don't. That's kind of crazy because like thinking back to the Siege of Jadotville, that movie. Like obviously they were Irish, but that didn't follow number 2. Yeah, he like surrendered. So this says you will die.
Well, it says I will never surrender the members of my command while they still have the means to resist. And so I will never surrender of my own free will. That's mean while I can fight, I will. If I get injured or I don't have the means to fight anymore, then is it acceptable to like,
I see. Okay, well, Siege of Jadotville, they ran out of ammo.
Yeah.
So like they don't have the means to resist anymore.
Yeah.
So like, okay, that makes sense. All right, number 3. If I am captured, I will continue to resist by all means available. I will make every effort to escape and to aid others to escape. I will never accept neither parole nor special favors from the enemy.
Yeah, that's like even Unbroken and then Rescue Dawn. They both get opportunities to get special favors and receive less harsh treatment, but they both refuse.
Eat shit. Yep. Yeah, that's good. I like that one. You want to read number 4?
Yeah, number 4 is, if I become a prisoner of war, I will keep faith with my fellow prisoners. I will give no information nor take part in any action which might be harmful to my comrades. If I am senior, I will take command. If not, I will obey the lawful orders of those appointed over me and will back them up in every way. That's like Unbroken as well. They have they keep their command structure.
Yeah, which is super interesting.
Yeah.
Like the officers are like separated with the enlisted in like a POW setting. That's super interesting that like they still keep the military rank structure.
Yeah.
And, like expect them to act accordingly.
Yep. And that was and that's something that that is definitely emphasized. And it's a way to keep things organized and to keep people feeling like they're still a part of something and they're to not give up, to not feel like they're alone,
Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh, here's a good one. This is what we were talking about with Rescue Dawn. When questioned, should I become a prisoner of war, I'm required to give name, rank, service number, and date of birth. I will evade answering further questions to the utmost of my ability. I will make no oral or written statements disloyal to my country and its allies or harmful to their cause. So if they want you to sign anything or
in Unbroken, they wanted him to do a radio broadcast to say certain things. And they even had him in the cafeteria and he looks over. He's like, you could be like those guys. And they were American servicemen in their uniforms eating good stuff. Like those guys did the radio broadcast. Why don't you want to do it? You know? And he's like, because these things aren't true. These things are saying that America's bad.
Yeah. All right. Last one. Go ahead and read it.
I will never forget that I'm an American fighting for freedom, responsible for my actions and dedicated to the principles which made my country free. I will trust in my God and in the United States of America.
Nice.
Yeah, that's that identity.
These are cool.
Thing. Yeah. These
cool. Are cool. Where the hell was this when I was in, huh?
This is general. I guess this is just general code of conduct. It says AR 350-30. I can't remember the exact. I don't remember that, but I remember this kind of stuff.
So it's code of conduct, and it's under the SERE regulation. So like this is what you do if you're captured. This is the rules you will live by. Yeah, that makes sense. That's probably why I never learned it, because I never did any SERE in the military. Yeah. Well, thanks, Chris. Thanks for asking.
Thanks, Chris, for this educational game that turned into just a rap session, just talking about the code of conduct.
Yeah. Well, it's perfect timing because my background light just went out, so that must mean it's time to wrap up the episode. Perfect timing.
Yep.
Well, folks, Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Pop Culture Field Manual Podcast. We hope you enjoyed and maybe learned a little something about what it takes to survive and got exposed to maybe some new pop culture pieces that you haven't seen that have to do with SERE.
Yeah. Yeah, folks, thank you for joining us so much. We will see you on the next glorious episode of the Pop Culture Field Manual Podcast. Until then,
Cue music and stay alive!